What if the biggest story at Wimbledon wasn't about a defending champion, but about a young woman chasing revenge? What if one match had the power to erase 2 years of heartbreak, rewrite history for an entire nation, and set up one of the most unbelievable showdowns tennis has ever seen? On one side of the net stood Alex Eala, the first Filipino player in history to earn a Grand Slam seed. On the other stood the woman who once shattered her dream. 2 years earlier, Alex had watched victory slip through her fingers. She was only moments away from reaching the biggest semi-final of her young career before everything collapsed. That painful defeat stayed with her long after the match ended. Now fate had brought them together again. Same rivalry, much bigger stage. Only this time, millions of fans were watching, and waiting beyond this battle was a dream almost impossible to believe: a potential second-round clash with Serena Williams. This wasn't just another first-round match. This was destiny calling. To understand why this moment meant so much, we have to go back to the summer of 2024. Back then, Alex Eala was still searching for her breakthrough. Ranked outside the world's elite, she was competing on the ITF circuit, fighting for every ranking point and every opportunity to prove she belonged among the best players on tour. One tournament in Cary, North Carolina, looked like it could finally change everything. Alex entered the quarterfinals full of confidence. Her aggressive baseline game was working perfectly. Her movement looked sharp, and she was playing with the fearless attitude that had always made her dangerous. Across the net stood Mexico's Renata Zarazua, an experienced professional who had spent years competing at the highest level. From the opening game, Alex looked unstoppable. She dominated the first set 6-3, controlling rallies with powerful forehands and forcing mistake after mistake from the Mexican veteran. Everything suggested Alex was about to book her place in the semifinals. Everything changed. Experience took over. Renata refused to panic. Point by point, game by game, she slowly turned the match around. The momentum shifted. Alex suddenly found herself defending instead of attacking. The confidence that had carried her through the opening set slowly disappeared. Renata captured the second set 6-4. Then she completed the comeback with another 6-3 victory in the final set. Just like that, Alex's dream run was over. For most young players, that loss would have been forgotten within days. But not for Alex. Some defeats leave scars. Others become fuel. That heartbreaking afternoon became the moment she promised herself something. If they ever met again, the result would be different. Instead of feeling sorry for herself, Alex returned to Spain with a new mindset. Every training session became more intense. Every weakness became a priority. She worked tirelessly at the Rafa Nadal Academy, improving her serve, strengthening her movement, and building the mental toughness needed to survive the biggest moments. While most people only noticed her victories, very few saw the sacrifices behind them: the endless hours, the physical pain, the pressure of carrying an entire country's expectations. Slowly, everything started to come together. Her ranking climbed higher. She began defeating bigger opponents. The tennis world stopped calling her a promising junior and started recognizing her as one of the fastest rising stars on the WTA Tour. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. On the grass courts of Berlin, Alex stunned the tennis world. She defeated former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina. Then, just one day later, she shocked another top player by eliminating Elena Svitolina. Suddenly, people weren't asking if Alex belonged anymore. They were asking how far she could go. Those incredible victories pushed her inside the world's top 30. History had officially been made. For the first time ever, a Filipino player earned a Grand Slam seed. The entire Philippines erupted in celebration. Television stations covered the story non-stop. Newspapers featured her on their front pages. Social media exploded with pride. Thousands of Filipino fans immediately began planning trips to London. Some had never attended a tennis tournament before. Others spent their savings just for one chance to watch history unfold at Wimbledon. Then came the official draw. And that's when destiny delivered one final surprise. Out of every player Alex could have faced, only one name appeared: Renata Zarazua, the very woman who had broken her heart 2 years earlier. You couldn't have written a better script. This wasn't simply a first-round match anymore. It had become a redemption story, a second chance, a full-circle moment on the biggest stage in tennis. And there was another twist. Almost nobody expected. Alex and Renata weren't just former opponents. They had once been doubles partners. They had celebrated points together, shared strategies, fought as teammates. Now they would stand on opposite sides of the net with everything on the line. Former partners. Former rivals. One unforgettable opportunity. Only one could move forward. Only one could keep the dream alive. And waiting in the second round, possibly the greatest tennis player of all time. But before Alex could even think about Serena Williams, she first had to defeat the one player who knew her game almost as well as she knew herself. The stage was finally set. History, revenge, destiny, all would collide on center court. Challenge was only beginning. Center court fell silent. For a brief moment, it felt as though time itself had stopped. Across the net stood the woman who had haunted Alex Eala's journey for nearly 2 years. Renata Zarazua wasn't just another opponent. She was the player who had turned Alex's greatest opportunity into one of her most painful memories. But this time, Alex wasn't the same teenager who had walked off the court heartbroken in North Carolina. She was stronger, smarter, more confident, and for the first time in her career, she stepped onto Wimbledon as the tournament's number 29 seed, the highest-ranked Filipino player ever to compete at a Grand Slam. More than 115 million Filipinos were watching. Thousands had filled center court, waving Philippine flags. History wasn't just knocking. It was standing right in front of her. From the very first rally, both players looked cautious. Neither wanted to blink first. Every point felt like a chess match, with each woman trying to expose the other's weakness. Renata relied on experience. Alex relied on belief. The rallies became longer, the pressure became heavier. But something was different about Alex. The confidence she had built during her incredible grass court season was impossible to ignore. The victories over Elena Rybakina, the stunning upset against Elina Svitolina, the deep run in Berlin. None of it had been luck. Those matches had transformed her into a completely different player. Her serve was more reliable. Her movement looked effortless. Most importantly, she no longer panicked when the pressure increased. Then came the turning point. Locked in a crucial service game, Alex forced Renata into one final baseline exchange. Forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand. Then suddenly Alex exploded into the court and ripped a blistering forehand winner down the line. Renata never moved. Center court erupted. The roar from the crowd echoed around the stadium. Filipino fans jumped to their feet. Flags filled the air. That single shot completely changed the momentum. From that moment onward, Alex played with total freedom. Every winner increased her confidence. Every hold of serve brought her closer to redemption. The memories of carry slowly disappeared with every passing game. When she served for the match, the tension was almost unbearable. One final deep breath. One final toss. Ace right down the tee. Game, set, match. Alex Eala. The stadium exploded. Alex dropped to her knees, overwhelmed by emotion. This wasn't simply another victory. It was 2 years of frustration finally disappearing. She had done it. She had defeated the woman who once broke her heart. She had completed her redemption story on the biggest stage in tennis. For millions watching back home in the Philippines, it became one of the proudest moments in the country's sporting history. But the celebration didn't last long, because everyone immediately looked toward the next name in the draw. Serena Williams, the greatest champion of the modern era, a 23-time Grand Slam winner, a living legend. The possibility alone sent social media into complete chaos. Fans couldn't believe what might happen next. And could Alex really face Serena at Wimbledon? It was the dream matchup everyone had secretly hoped for. Television networks immediately began discussing the possibility. Former champions called it one of the most exciting storylines of the tournament. Around the world, tennis fans prepared for what could become one of the biggest matches of the year. Yet, regardless of who stood on the other side of the net next, Alex had already proven something much bigger. She belonged, not because of one lucky tournament, not because of one upset, but because of years of relentless work. Every sacrifice, every lonely training session in Spain, every heartbreaking defeat, every painful lesson, they had all led to this moment. She wasn't simply representing herself anymore. She was carrying the hopes of an entire nation that had never before witnessed one of its own become a true contender on tennis's biggest stage. Her live ranking continued climbing toward another career high. Her prize money increased. Her global popularity exploded. But perhaps her greatest achievement couldn't be measured by rankings or trophies. She had inspired an entirely new generation. Young Filipino children now believed something they had never believed before, that one day, they could stand on center court too. As Alex walked off the famous Wimbledon grass, one question remained. Had the tennis world just witnessed the completion of an incredible revenge story? Or had they only seen the first chapter of a future Grand Slam champion? Well, one thing was certain. Alex Eala's story was no longer about potential. It was about possibility becoming reality, and with every match she played, history continued to write itself. The journey was far from over. In many ways, it was only just beginning.